We divide the world to stop us feeling frightened, into wrong and into right, into status quo and scary. We want the world binary, but it's not that simple. You're watching History Hound, and this is just a crosshair, the bizarre events surrounding the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. There are two things I love about doing this channel. The first is that I get to tell you stories about people and moments in history that I love. This was true with our first special, Glory of the 54th. The second thing I love about doing this is that I get to do research into things that I don't know a lot about. That's what's happening today. I love history. I'm passionate about it, even though there's many gaps and blind spots that I'm not very knowledgeable on. For me, World War I is one of those blind spots. Last month I hope I taught you a bit about the 54th Massachusetts Regiment. Today, I invite you to learn with me about the start of World War I and the events surrounding what was the catalyst for what Woodrow Wilson called the war to end all wars. Wait till he sees the sequel. So, where to begin? I suppose we need to start by looking at the state of the world before the assassination. The decline of the Ottoman Empire in the late 1800s resulted in several land disputes, power grabs, and alliances that redrew borders and created dozens of treaties that would be the basis of the two sides of the conflict. The first of these is what we'll call the Triple Alliance, which consisted of Germany, Italy, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which we'll just call Austria-Hungary from here on out. This alliance was spearheaded by German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck in 1882 to help protect the territory of Alsace-Lorraine, which had recently annexed from France after the Franco-Prussian War. To attempt to balance this power, the Triple Entente was formed. This consisted of the British Empire, Russia, and France. They were very adamant that this wasn't an alliance, but rather an understanding built around the Franco-Russian alliance and the Anglo-Russian alliance. They weren't just an alliance, rather, just friends. In the midst of all of this, the English and the Germans were having a pissing contest over who had the best navy. When Germany ramped up fleet production, the Royal Navy released the revolutionary HMS Dreadnought, easily the most powerful battleship of its time. It wouldn't be long before this pissing contest would cross streams. Tensions in the region rose when Austria-Hungary announced that they would be annexing Bosnia-Herzegovina, which makes a lot of people nervous and unhappy, particularly countries like Serbia, Montenegro, and Bulgaria, and Greece, which was recently become independent nations from the Ottoman Empire and felt threatened by Austria-Hungary's annexation. These countries would form the Balkan League, and they would be the main players in the prequel to World War I, the Balkan Wars. I know I'm way oversimplifying things. Great channel, by the way. There's a lot of players, alliances, and quick battles, and minor wars, and I could do videos on them and barely scratch the surface. This is all to say that in the early 1900s, Europe was a powder keg waiting for a single spark in a sea of sparks to explode all over itself. That spark came on June 28th, 1914. Let's meet the key players, shall we? This is Archduke Franz Ferdinand, oldest son of Archduke Karl Ludwig and nephew to Austrian Emperor Franz Joseph I. After the death of his father and the suicide of the emperor's only son, Crown Prince Rudolf, Ferdinand was next in line for the throne. He married Sophie Chotek, a lady-in-waiting who was well below his station. This marriage was not looked upon with favor, and was only approved when the Archduke denounced that his descendants had any claim to the throne. He was Inspector General of the Austrian-Hungarian forces, and as such held a great influence over the military. This is the Black Hand, a clandestine society made up mostly of lower-ranked officers in the army of the Kingdom of Serbia, who looked to unify the South Slavs much in the same way Italy did several decades earlier. They had successfully orchestrated the assassination of King Alexander and his wife, Draga, in 1903. They planned to assassinate the Bongian governor, Oskar Potierik, but when the would-be assassin had to throw his weapons out of the train he was traveling because he feared he was about to be caught, the group changed their sights to the Archduke. To carry out this mission, they used a group of young Bosnians that called themselves Young Bosnia. The members that would be called to action included Mastermind Danilo Ilić, Vasil Srebrinović, Nadia Kočevinović, Gavrilo Princip, and a handful of others. The group would head to Sarajevo, where the Archduke was going to be traveling through by motorcade. This is where it gets almost comical. Before the motorcade began, 3 local police mistakenly got in the first car with the chief officer of special security, which meant that the special security officers that were supposed to ride in that car got left behind. Oops. The second car carried the mayor of Sarajevo and the chief of police, while the third car, an open top with the top folded down, carried the Archduke, Queen Sophie, and Governor Poturic, the additional turret. Ilić had placed his assassins along the path of the motorcade on Apple Key. The first 2 would be assassins they failed to act. Then they passed Nedelico Kabrinović, who hurled a bomb at them. When he threw the bomb, however, it bounced off the folded top of the Archduke's car. It exploded beneath the next car in the motorcade, injuring 20 people in the process. The remainder of the motorcade sped away to the destination of the Archduke's appearance and speech at Town Hall, which he read from the now blood-soaked notes that were kept in the damaged car. This was Teddy Roosevelt getting shot right before his speech and giving it anyway the vote was. Meanwhile, Srebrinović had fled the scene and tried to commit suicide so that he would not be forced to give up his co-conspirators if captured. He swallowed a deadly dose of cyanide and jumped into the Miyakin River. I say deadly dose, but really it just made him violently ill. And I say Miyakin River, but I really mean 13 centimeters of water, and that part of the river had dried up due to the particularly harsh summer. When the police found him, he was severely beaten by an angry mob and was detained. Immediately after the Archduke's speech, he expressed a desire to go to the hospital to visit the people who were injured in the attempt on his life. Poturic agreed, but indicated an alternate route might be a safe route to take, to possibly avoid any additional attempts on crowds. He just failed to communicate this to the drivers, who made a wrong turn. Poturic, who was still sharing the vehicle with the Archduke and Sophie, frantically called for the drivers to stop and turn back. When the Archduke's car stopped to reverse it, just so happened to be right where Gavrilo Princip happened to be standing. The assassin stepped on the footboard of the car and shot both the Archduke and Sophie at point-blank range before trying to turn the gun on himself. He was subdued before he could end his own life. The Archduke and his wife would be dead within the hour. This would lead to what is commonly referred to as the July Crisis. Austria-Hungary demanded vengeance, and many demanded war with Serbia, though the Emperor wanted to wait until they had more information. Why start a war if it was just a few bad actors? Germany declares that it will back up Austria-Hungary with whatever they need, including military might. Upon hearing this news, France and Russia throw support behind Serbia, but really don't want to get into a war with Germany. Austria-Hungary issues Serbia an ultimatum, and in 48 hours to comply. Serbia did not. On July 24th, Serbia and Austria-Hungary have determined that war is immediate, and despite England trying to mediate a peace treaty, the two forces began to mobilize in preparations for the inevitable, and on July 28th, Austria-Hungary officially declares war on Serbia with the backing of Germany. Russia's hand is forced, and they begin to mobilize for war. At this time, Germany declares war on Russia, France, and Belgium. Belgium was previously a neutral country in all of this, but the invasion of Germany ruined all that. The UK was not amused, and as a result, declared war on Germany. Finally, Austria-Hungary declares war on Russia, and now we've got a genuine World War on our hands. In the years that followed, just about every country that had a stake in Europe would join. It got bloody, all because of a wrong turn. Or was it? The powder keg that was Europe at the time was bound to explode sooner or later. If it wasn't the assassination of the Archduke, then it would have eventually been something else, I'm sure of it. The tension was so high, war could have broken out because Kaiser Wilhelm accidentally sneezed on Tsar Nicholas. And what of the assassination itself? It was carried out in support of Serbian fears that Austria-Hungary was ever encroaching and that the South Slavs should be united as Yugoslavia. The irony here being that the Archduke was actually very sympathetic to the Serbians, and when it would have been his turn as emperor, Serbia would have most likely had very little to fear. Whereas the second in line, Karl I, did not share these same sympathies. And of the assassins, history has looked upon them with a big question mark. Are they heroes? Freedom fighters doing what they believe to be necessary for a cause that they believe to be noble? Are they villains? Terrorists using violence to force an agenda on an unwilling people? If they are heroes, then where do we draw the line between Gavrilo Princip and the likes of John Wilkes Booth? If they are villains, where do we draw the line between assassin and soldier? I wish I could tell you. This question is so important, even and especially today. Peaceful protesters are good. Looters and arsonists are bad. Okay, I buy that. But that's a big gap. Where do you draw a line between the good trouble and the late John Lewis championed as the catalyst for change and smash and grab opportunists and anarchists? Where's the line between friendly neighborhood police officers and bad cops? The extremes are obvious to me, but that they even exist means that there is a line. There has to be, right? I wish I had some insight here. I wish I knew. I wish I could grab a big red Sharpie and highlight the gray line that is horrifically the same shade of gray where all of our ambiguities live. But I honestly can't. That doesn't mean I'm gonna stop trying. You've been watching History Hound. I'll see you in history.